summer break is winding down. The new school year, it's around the corner, which means it's time to start getting you, your kids, your family ready to head back into the classroom. So pediatric psychologist Dr. Lara Jones is joining us here on Fox 5 Weekend Live to help you with that process. Hello, Dr. Jones.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Yes, thank you for joining us. I mean, it's that time of year. Parents are starting to get their minds set back onto the school year. Where do you recommend starting when it comes to all of that for parents and for kids?
This time of year can really be kind of stressful for children and families. We're really seeing kind of a shift between the more flexible summer schedule to a more structured, routine-based schedule with the school year. And so with that could come added activity demands like homework or extracurricular activities. And, also the newness of it all. Some children might be starting a brand new school, but might be new teachers, new friends. And so this could be a time where we are seeing a bit more stress. So it's important to kind of acknowledge that.
Got it. And yeah, I feel like this is also the time where I remember as a kid, like I would start to get the Sunday scaries, like thinking about going back to
Yeah.
school, like that bit of anxiety. So what do you recommend parents do to, I guess, help sort of ease that for their kids and really calm them in terms of thinking about getting back into school mode?
Yeah, so a couple of things that can be really helpful is thinking about starting parts of the routine a little bit early.
Hmm.
So something to we always sort of see with the summer is that bedtime routines and morning routines can slide a little bit, staying up a little bit later, sleeping in a little bit later. And so right now, to support that adjustment, starting to get into a more normalized bedtime routine and morning routine. If things have been sort of really thrown off by the summer, then it might mean kind of going to bed about 30 minutes earlier every night until you get to about the time when you'd normally be going to sleep for school. And then same thing with the morning routine, just shifting that a little bit each day earlier until you get to about the time that the child might be waking up. And this can really help then too with that first day of school. We're not dealing with fatigue on top of a little bit of adjustment stress and things like that.
Mm. And what about screen time and social media? I mean, over the summer, there's more time to do that. I'm sure parents are a little less restrictive versus the school year.
Yeah.
So, how do you recommend them sort of handling that kind of adjustment?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And really, kind of same idea is starting to slowly maybe decrease the amount of time that kids are spending on devices, especially in that bedtime window. We really don't want them on their devices about like an hour before going to bed. And so starting to kind of tighten up some of those limitations on devices can be really helpful. Again, so there's not just a stark transition from the summer to getting back to school.
Mm. And once the school year does start, I feel like they're kind of getting back into their routine, and then you're in your work routine as a parent. It kind of feels disconnected at times. So how do you recommend parents kind of stay in touch with what their child is thinking and feeling sort of throughout the week and throughout their day?
That's a great question. The natural times where parents kind of find themselves with their child can be a really great time to sort of bring up how they're doing in school, ask them both sort of open-ended and specific questions so they can really kind of get the information that they need. And that can be done, in the car, going to different activities or during family dinners. So it doesn't have to be sort of an identified time that the parent says, "Oh, I'm going to check in with you about this,"
Mm.
but more so just sort of naturally part of the routine that they're already doing, taking advantage of that one-on-one time that they might have in the car driving places or during dinner times and things like that.
Yeah, that makes
It
sense.
can also be really helpful too, though. You're going to get a lens from your child based on their perception of how things are going, but staying really connected with the school is important as well. So the child's teacher, school psychologist, guidance counselor, those can be really great places once the school year sort of gets up and running to check in and see how your child is doing in school, especially if you have concerns that, some of the adjustment stress or some anxiety might have persisted past a typical adjustment time. So the school can be a really great place to sort of plug in and see how are they doing in school, and then are there any sort of individualized things that might need to be done to help them more specifically if they're still having some struggles.
I mean, and with that, it can also be an adjustment for parents. I mean, sort of getting back into the mode of having to, deal with all of the things that come with school with their kids. So, any advice for parents as they sort of prepare to get back into the thick of things?
Sure. I want to give a huge acknowledgement to parents and caregivers at this time because you're absolutely right. They are the ones shouldering the burden of kind of back to school planning, organization, getting all of the supplies, thinking about what that schedule is going to look like, who needs to be where and when. And so, some of the same ideas that really help with children as far as preparing in advance can really help with parents as well too. And so, something like taking a step back and looking at that schedule over a period of several months, making sure that appointments are already put in, thinking about buying or getting the school supplies early. And so we're not kind of struggling or scrambling for that at the last minute. So just kind of preparing in advance can be really helpful to sort of alleviate some of that executive functioning burden that falls on parents.
That's true, setting yourself up for success. Well, thank you so much for your helpful advice, Dr. Jones. We really appreciate it. This has been lovely chatting with you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.